Hey guys, so I was trying to figure out, I wanted to do like a ramble on a topic tonight because, well, first I was thinking about how, you know, love, how it never fails us. Um, because I had great revelation, but I'm actually going to put that in my book that I'm actually writing. So I want you guys to stay tuned and excited for it. So, yeah, this ramble is actually going to be talking about the scabs and the scars in our life, um, and things that are deep rooted in our lives. Now, I did a lesson on, actually, it was a study. No, it was a challenge, excuse me, on nipping it at the root. Now, what happened to me in my life is I can explain to you guys because usually the stuff that I talk to you guys about, God brings me through or allows me to see in my life. I'm constantly reevaluating everything that happens in my life because I know that, nothing that happens in my life is a mistake. Though I can use any trial, any error in my life as a lesson to help better you guys and I'll also better myself. That's why I'm constantly reevaluating my life. So if you're not looking at the things in your life and you're wondering, how should you do this? I constantly look at my life and the things that are happening in my life and the things um, that I want to, that outplay. Whether I look at my little brother and the things he does, and when I look at him, I always picture myself as being God, looking down at myself because as a child he can teach me, and if I'm looking down at him because I'm seeing the interview. But it's so funny. We'll be talking about that in my next lesson that I'm doing. Um, Basically, it's talking about facing the giants in our lives when it has to do with our purpose in Christ. So stay tuned for that. But recently, what happened to me was God actually, guys, I went on my journey and I got a little shaken up, um, on my journey because God placed me in a place where I had to face my giants in my life, like I had said before. But on my part of the situation, one thing that I do believe that God really did shake up some stuff in my life um, is that we tend to bury things in our lives. Um, and I know I'm a good one for that. For years and years and years. Um, well, 3 years to be exact. But I mean more than that because I know I have issues that are within me. But for 3 years, I've been having flashbacks constantly um, about the abuse that was happened in my relationship that was right before I got saved. Um, I couldn't. I mean, I got into relationships, but I was in fear. Um, Also, another thing was, fear really ran my life a lot because I always watched men come in and out of my mother's life when I was younger. And so I let that big thing control my life, but not also that, but the also thing that I let control my life is because I was so used to um, getting hurt by men or, for years I've just been bitter and angry and upset and it's really has affected my life. And for years, I mean, I've made comments, and I know um, that that it affects people, and I know it affects people. But for years, since I've gotten saved, I just, I've tried, and there was nothing within me that was just like, yeah, I just want to, uh, you know, feel better about men. It was never because of my lifestyle, my lifestyle was a prostitution type lifestyle. My dad, when he was younger, he was entangled in some things. He was abusive, and I never really seen men stay around. It's not like I had like this great picture of a man in my head. I mean, being a streetwalker, um, you don't see the good side of things. You see the worst side of things, and so, um, I was bitter, and I know as a person, everything we do affects other people's lives. So imagine how many people's lives I've been destructing because of my negative feelings on how I felt. When how I feel at the end of the day, that has nothing to do with how good God is. And, it bothers me because I shouldn't have been like that. But within me, I just was so hard hearted. Yes, I tried the dating of other guys and stuff like that, but it just, no. The more I did it, the more it just made me sick to my stomach. And it's sad, and that's been my inner secret. And another thing to add on to it was um, the fact that I was so scared to fall in love and hurt people. For the last 3 years, I've had flashbacks um, all the time, just walking around on campus. When I used to be in school, and I'd have these flashbacks all the time, and they hindered me. They really hindered me a lot because I would go and I try, to step out and talk to people and guys and stuff. And I remember I dated this one guy freshman year, and like literally, I felt like, I mean, I know we weren't supposed to be together now, but I literally, with any man, I just felt like, oh my gosh, like, no, you're out to get me. There's something wrong here. Like, it was just a fear, or I'd be so scared because my last relationship was abusive, and all I knew was how to love in certain ways. There was no other ways of me knowing how to love a man. It's either I loved a man in the bed, or I loved a man um, was abusively, or they wanted my body. It was never anything outside of that. And so, you know, um, it really bothered me. So I would have flashbacks because, as we all know, I became the abuser in my last relationship before I got saved because that's all I knew as love. Love was abuse, love was mean, love was selfish, love was all about me, and I was so depressed. And, it got really hard, but I got so scared that I wouldn't be able to ever love. The devil would always whisper in my ear, Jasmine, you're destruction, you're destructive. I've written tons of poems about it. I used to sit there and cry to my friend. He used to say, "Oh, Jazz, you're gonna be a good girlfriend one day." Um, my best friend, he was showing me, God sent him in my life to show me, not all men are the same and all that stuff, and I really appreciate him. But, he used to be like, you need to start thinking better. He said, because you're a really good woman, and I'd be like, I think I might well, it's just like, yeah, you see my outer, and you see the things that I do, and that's wonderful. I said, but I felt like destruction, like no one understood because they'd never seen, you know, um, the things that I had seen when I was back there, and it was just like a heavy burden that I've been carrying on me for years, and it was really hard, and and it gets to the point where like God has to dig up, shake things up in your life, and so that the dirt gets removed. Because when you look at a tree or any plant, there's dirt packed down on these roots. And so that's like our problem. We have roots to our issue. Our roots are our issue, and they're deep down and they're packed underneath all this dirt and they're hidden. And so sometimes, we have to go in there and God has to shake up the dirt and remove it so we can get to the root of the issue and remove it. And I started thinking about it, and, um, it really impacted me because, like, I even look at, like, um, I went to church and God kept telling me about the woman with the issue of blood and how he healed her and to drop, and just to touch the hem of his garment. And so, um, all I knew was I needed to go to church, that no one was going to be able to help me, and that, God was the only one who was going to help me. So I went to the altar, for 3 days. The first sermon was talking about how the pastor said, from the inside out, outside in, and basically how sometimes we need someone from the outside looking on the inside to basically let us see what's going on. Um, it was just crazy. And then the second day, I couldn't even pay attention. I couldn't focus, and I feel like, I always can focus in church. Like, I love being in church, but it was like no matter how hard I try to focus, I could not focus. And then the next day, everybody felt the spirit moving, and I was just sitting there, and I remember God talking to me about how Jesus, how all these people touched the hem of his garment, anyone who wanted to be healed. Um, like right before I went into church, and I knew it was going to be my day of getting my healing. And so at the end of the service, the pastor said that, you know, there's a spirit of healing in here. And so I went up and, um, literally, I don't know what came over me. I mean, I know it was God, but it's just like I could just feel deliverance. Like I could just feel like so much stuff. It just felt like so much was being pulled out of me. Like I could literally feel deliverance in my stomach. Like things were just being ripped out of me. Like all this baggage, all this hurt, all this pain, until finally it just stopped and I was screaming. I was screaming. And, you know, it was just like all I heard God say was, they can't hurt you anymore, and, I just thank God for like healing me, because I just think about it. It's kind of like a scab that you keep picking, but it won't get better until you just leave it alone, or you try to cover it up, but it's not going to get better until you let Jesus heal you, until you let Jesus fix you, until you touch the hem of his garment, until you know, and this thing, I mean, it haunted me so bad. I mean, I just, it, it haunted me, and I had to get to the root, literally. And what I would do was, I would want to get rid of it, but it was allowing me to continue to keep going back to the same place. Like I would want to change my life, but it was a root to an issue. And then, and then, I'd go and I'd get into a relationship and I'd do the same thing. Why? Because that thing was deep. I mean, I wasn't abusive, but it was like I'd run from the relationship. And the thing is like, it was like deep rooted in me. So, because the thing was so deep rooted in me and planted in me from when I was younger, we don't think about the stuff that we plant into our children, we plant into people around us, because that stuff, we plant seeds and they get rooted into us. So because I'm so afraid of men that they're gonna leave me, that's been planted in me my whole life. So every time I've had a boyfriend my whole life, it's either I've always said, okay, I don't want to be with you. All right, I want to be with you. So I'd break up with him every other day. Why? Because that's been rooted in me. That's been planted in me. So we have to be careful what we plant into people. You know, when I used to be abusive, that was planted into me, so it was deep down and rooted into me. So God had to shake things up in my life, get the dirt off so He could pull it out of me. That was that deliverance I felt in my stomach. I felt like God was pulling things out of me, pulling things out of me until I couldn't feel anything being pulled out of me anymore. And he said, they cannot hurt you again. And, it's just, it's crazy, how, we don't think that we really reap what we sow, but the things that we plant into our children, the things that we do, they get rooted into us and they become strongholds on us, and they're deep within us, and some people are so bound down by these things. Have I've known Christ, and I've been trying to live my walk with Christ for 3 years since I've been saved. I've grown so much because I see the world from the things that I did not you know things that I did not like in the world, and God's been able to open my eyes because being a runaway, you learn how to see the world differently. So I've seen how God protected me out there when I was in my sin, and how God did this, because I said I'm constantly looking back over my life. But it's just like, it's just crazy, how things can be so, rooted and just haunt you for so long. I just wanted to just be able to love, and that's my biggest fear is, uh, growing up was always love, but the Bible says in First John 4:8, for who does not love does not know God, for God is love. And for a long time I didn't know God because I didn't. My biggest fear was love, and then I found God. Um, and then recently I just learned about 1 John 4:18. I just had revelation because even though I was trying to love, I still had fear. But I mean, it says there is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear, because fear involves torment. But he who fears has not been made perfect in love. And finally today I got revelation about that because God recently has been working on me in my life, and in some other areas where I really am appreciative in him with, and about my future and places that I'm going. But it's like I feared being in love with someone, because it's been my biggest fear. I mean, I can love God now because I know He's love, but loving people has been really hard for me, because I'm so scared of ever going back to where I was. But I thank God, for taking, nipping things at the root, and restoring things in my life. God is a restorer, and if you just tell him, sometimes he, like I said, he'll shake things up so he can pull things out of you, so he can get things out of you, so that things can start changing in your lives. And I just think about how fear, uh, how there's no love in fear. I mean, there's no fear in love, because, well, vice versa. But when you think about it, this is my revelation today, which was really exciting, because it's just like there is no fear in love, because all things are possible with God. If God said it, it is so. It is so. So, I've been like, reading books and stuff like that, like about how there would be these couples that were ordained to be together with God, and though they broke up, God still brought them back together. Why? You know, why did He bring them back together? Because that was His will. They were meant to be together since the beginning of time. You know, um, Romans 8:28. It talks about, before, well, let me turn there. It talks about, and we know that all things work together for the good of those who love God, who are called according to their purpose, for whom He foreknew, because He already foreknew them before the beginning of the time that they'd be together. He also predestined to be conformed to His image. They are to be formed as one, to be formed into the image of God, that He might be the firstborn among brethren. Moreover, whom he predestined them to be together. He also called them to be together, and who he called, he also justified. And whom he justified, these he also glorified. And what then shall we say to these things? For if God is for us, who could be against us? Um, which is so funny because that's me and my boyfriend's um, verse for our relationship. Like, that God gave us when we first got together. But I just think about it, because like that has been my issue. Like, I have fear of loving. Um, and, I mean, when you just like think about it, it's just crazy because it's true. Because if God, is love, and, even when I just think about it, like, when he told me, yeah, you guys, when I prayed about being with him, and when he told me, yeah, you guys are supposed to be together, it's just like, okay, at the end of the day, if things go wrong and things separate and we're whatever, like, I know within myself that I'm not going anywhere. So if we ever part and he decides he wants to go his way or whatever, I'm going to stick with what God told me. God said this is who I'm supposed to be with, and at the end of the day, when he decides, when God talks to him and he decides to come back, then I'll be here. you know I look at it like that. It's just like, when God is in it, you don't ever have to worry about things just falling apart. I mean, yeah, they may fall apart, yeah, they may crumble, but at the end of the day, all things work together. All things work together. That means even when things start looking rough and rough patches and people start making these mistakes and error comes, at the end of the day, God can still restore. God can still fix, because it's God's plan. I mean, I look at Jonah. Jonah tried to run away from God, and at the end of the day, God brought Jonah right back to where he needed to be. Right back to where he needed to be. So it's just like, you can run all you want to. Run from his plan, run from his purpose, run from anything that God has for you. At the end of the day, it's going to take you longer to get where you need to be, but God's going to bring you right back to the same place. Why? Because that's where you were originally intended to be. You can't, I mean, go ahead, run. You're going to end up back in the same place. Why do you think people go through the same test over and over and over again? Why? Because they did not defeat it, or they ran from that test in their life. And so God will constantly, continually put that test in front of your face until you get it right, until it's fixed, because it's going to work out in the end. He's going to make sure it gets right. Um, like I did my thing on No Child Left Behind. He's not gonna leave you behind, but you're gonna get it right. You're gonna get it right. And so, and I just thank God, because if you don't get it right, that deliverance won't come. Just like I said within myself, um, when God told me, who I was supposed to be with, I literally was just like, no, God, I'm content in my singleness. I'm going to serve you single, whatever. But inside of me, I was bitter. And I said, well, I'm just going to serve people and just, you know, I don't want to catch any emotions because I was hurt. It's not like I don't care about people. I was just hurt, you know, um, and I was just going to serve people, serve God, and just keep it moving because I was hurt, and I try, so hard to just, oh yeah, hey everybody, but inside of me, it's just like, okay, all these people just keep, just I give and I give, and hey, and I'm trying to love people like God, and it's just like, all right, I'm getting my toe stepped on every time I turn around, and you know, um, so it was coming really hard um, for me. But I stuck it in there. I conquered being a year single and trying to get me together and loving myself and finding out who I am within God. And but then I became content. But then God was just like, hey, but I've had to learn how. other lessons in my life since then, other things which I have been growing and I've been doing like a lot of lessons. But it's just interesting just how God, like, He'll just, uncover things in your life. And, in order to get to a new place in your life, He has to get those roots. And I recently just told my mom, I said, I want God to restore me so I don't live in the past. Um, if you guys know, I think it was almost a year and a half ago, I cut my hair off. Um, I was going through a hard time, and literally, I cut all my hair off. And because I'm the type of person where I like control in my life, and my hair at that time in my life was the only thing that I could control. I was always taking care of my hair. It was the only thing I could control in my life, and I felt like I had no control left, so I cut all my hair off. And all of my hair off. Well, now I like it because it's natural, but um, at that time, I just had no control in my life, and I just felt like, all right, if my life has no control in it, then I don't want anything to control in my life, and so I cut my hair off. And I think about that because it's true. I've been doing a lot of teachings on letting go and letting God, and and I think a lot about dying to yourself and surrendering your life to God is that um, you have no control. Really, you don't really have any control. I, I've been really trying to die to myself, and I know God's will for my life. And it's just like the more I try to have control in the situation, the more I know that I don't have control in the situation because God is in control. I can't. It's like being in a car, being in the passenger seat, and then trying to take the wheel. Um, it's hard, and it's been really hard on I think, when especially when you're talking about taking up your cross and following Jesus, and especially when your family doesn't think, that you know what you're doing, but you're following God through faith, and he has to be in control. And that's been really hard for me because, like I said, I like control. And just waking up just wondering what he's doing on a day-to-day basis in your life, and just being like, okay, God, whatever it is that you want from me, whatever it is that you want me to do, whatever it is that you want me to speak to your people, whatever it is that you want from me, Lord, I'll do it. This is not even my life anymore. However, these people, it's I prayed about being selfless, and and I'm eating my words because it's true. I mean, I really do want to be selfless, but being selfless means you're not about yourself. It's Jesus, others, yourself, joy. You put Jesus first, others second, and you're last. And when you're thinking about that, a lot of the times you really are last. But Jesus is gonna take care of you because you're last. Because if you're putting God and Jesus first and others second, God's gonna take care of you at the end of the day. And that's what I've been learning. Yeah, all my stuff is just taken care of. He hasn't failed me. I'm just blessed, at the end of the day, just trying to figure out what it is that he wants from me, and, another thing that I've learned is, God loves because, you know, I've had to learn that God loves a cheerful giver, and that's not just, I'm gonna do a lesson on that, but that's not just cheerful as in, okay, I'm gonna like cheerfully give money, but cheerfully give love, you know, because honestly, when God, first told me, okay, Jazz, oh, Jazz, now that you're content within yourself, now that you're starting to love yourself, this is what I have for you. I was really upset, and um, I was really upset, and I'm not even gonna lie, I was. Um, because I for so long it's like it's something that I wanted, and then for God to just spring something like that on me, my heart just like quaked and fell apart. But I just thank God, you know. I thank him because now I've learned how to cheerfully give um instead of giving grudgingly. I mean, it's just like, being in a church and going just because it's the right thing. But, I'm learning how to love, you know, I'm learning how to love and give love to others without, oh, why would I say this all the time, don't do something for me if you don't want to do it. Do it for me because you want to do it, because you love me, because you care about me. Don't just do it because you don't want to do it. And, you know, I can't even say that I haven't done that before because I have. Um, because, sometimes when you have a bad taste in your mouth, you just, it's kind of hard to give, you know. But this is my ramble, you guys. And, you know, yeah, this is my ramble. I just needed, I love you guys so much. And I really appreciate you guys. I'm going to put up so many more lessons on being a cheerful giver and also facing your giants when it comes to your promises in life. And I'm also working on my book, so stay posted. Another thing is I am going to start putting my lessons on DVD and CD. They are free, but I will accept donations if you would like to support my ministry as well. So I thank you so much, and I love you guys. Thank you for listening to me ramble because yeah, it's 12:47 and I have church in the morning, but I really wanted to talk. And I love you guys. And that's what's going on with me right now. But I just continue to pray for me. And yeah, that's where I am right now. And I love you guys. And I will have your lessons out for you. Okay? Thank you. And God bless. Peace.